For all the perfectionists out there, today's episode is going to be for you. I did not realize how early this idea of perfectionism starts to lay down its foundations until I spent some time this weekend at an event with my daughter. And so that is becoming the inspiration for today's episode. So I asked Jonathan to be here to unpack this with me, and it should be a good, fun conversation. So we're really literally inviting you to one of those closed door conversations that often has been happening for over 20 years behind closed doors, and you get to be in on it. So fly on the wall.
Good, bad, or ugly.
Good, bad, or ugly. All right, so let's dive in. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alecia St. Germain, here with my regular co-host, Jonathan Duggar. It's so much more fun to do these when you're here.
Well, I'm glad you think so, because I enjoy it for sure.
Yeah, it's a good time. For those of you who are just new joining us, we put these episodes out every Tuesday. So make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button from wherever you are listening. We have a lot of fun. We cover all the aspects of building a business, what it means to be a human, building a business, trying to do it in a way that's sustainable and enjoyable, and maybe make a difference along the way. So, all right. First of all, I wanted to have this conversation with you based on my daughter is in Science Olympiad, which is a really cool thing. I call it competitive sciencing. For anybody who doesn't know what Science Olympiad, it is competitive sciencing. It's everything that is like STEM related, and they literally study, the stuff she was covering was like, she's in 6th grade, college level stuff, anatomy and physiology, like what I took when I was in college for respiratory therapy. And so their team made it to states. Super proud of her. First year on the team. It's the team's second year having a team in middle school. So super cool. They made it to states. So as part of that, each team has to submit 2 parent volunteers that sit and help grade these exams that kids are taking in a variety of topics. Otherwise, they get docked points from their team. So I had the pleasure of volunteering, and I got to grade, I don't know how many papers for rocks and minerals. And so it's super interesting the way that I could see kids' mindsets and the effort that they put in and how they approach the test just by viewing the test. And as it was like, I'm sitting there and I'm grading it and I'm thinking, and I'm watching the kids as they're taking the test, and I'm thinking about how much what is happening in that room relates to what you and I see in our coaching. And what we work with people. And this isn't just perfectionism. This is just how people approach something hard. And so I thought it was really interesting. And so I wanted to unpack that a little bit. So I noticed that the way perfectionists showed up was when I was grading those papers, there were kids that the pages, there's like 300 questions about rocks and minerals. I've never seen so many pretty rocks in one place. And they can come in with resources. They can come in with different events have different resources that they're allowed to have. So they're not always expected to memorize everything or know everything. Some of it's about what resources did you build? How did you prepare? What is your test strategy? So there's a lot of life skills that go along with this because they have to learn time management and all kinds of things. So some kids left their tests mostly blank. And I mean, some kids showed up, they had nothing. Like like they're allowed to have all these resources, they've got nothing. They're just like there.
No
Showing
preparation.
up.
No apparent preparation.
No apparent preparation. Like some people do that, right? You show up, not prepared. Some kids fully prepared.
Welcome to my world.
Indexed, sticky noted, color coordinated manuals they have created for themselves.
That's my friend Chris.
Yeah. And so they got the whole gamut. So when I'm grading these tests, so some of these tests, they're completely blank. And what they did answer, 100% correct. Like if they answered it, it was correct. But they left so much of the test blank that, I mean, they didn't do well. They didn't do well at all.
Sure.
Because what I realized is these are middle school and high schoolers. They're only answering the question if they know the answer, including the multiple choice and the true false. Like at the very least, if you just guessed at your multiple choices, you were guaranteed to get something right. But they would only do it if so those kids by far generally did the worst on the test. On the other gamut, the kids who won, I should go to like the next level up, is like there's the kids that answered everything, like just tried, guessed. Clearly, they weren't prepared. They didn't do well either because they weren't prepared, but they got as many right as the kids who only put the ones they knew. The kids who guessed got the same amount correct. So that
interesting
blew my mind, this comparison between somebody who was prepared but only answered what they absolutely knew and somebody who was totally unprepared and just guessed. And they got very similar scores.
That's interesting. That is actually a very specific example of two types of performance personalities. Like, I can't remember what it's called, but there's two performance styles, and one is heavily related to perfectionism and all of its negative connotations. And one is the personality style of like the risk taker. And then there's some subtypes of risk takers, like risk takers that actually have some, like they're not working from a completely clean slate. They have some past performance to base it on. And then there's others that they take risk intentionally on things that they know nothing about, sort of thing. But they're willing to take that risk. But the perfectionism, I don't know how technical we want to get in this conversation, but perfectionism really isn't about being perfect. It's about avoiding failure or the possibility of failure. So that's a perfect example. Like they were completely willing to leave something almost blank because they did not want to fail at any of those possible questions. Wow. How old are these kids?
Middle school and high school.
So
they're roughly figure 10 to 18.
Wow.
So I love let's like going into that perfectionism piece, right? It's not about getting it right. It's about not wanting to fail and not wanting to be judged for failing.
Right.
So like better to not answer, get the same exact result. You get it wrong by not answering, but then I can't, like, I just didn't answer. So maybe I didn't get to it. Like nobody can judge me because I didn't even try it.
Yep.
And that's just like, whoa, when I saw that. And then to realize from a testing standpoint, and I know that any perfectionist sitting here, somebody who's struggling, I don't want to say perfectionist, like somebody who's struggling with perfectionism, whether you're aware of it. I think most of the people who listen to this podcast are quite aware that someone maybe struggles with perfectionism.
Yeah.
But to really give you evidence And here's the thing about perfectionists, because you judge yourself so much harder than anybody else.
Anybody else does.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you judge everyone else typically too, because you judge yourself, you judge everyone else for not being perfect. It's like, I know the perfectionist that sits there and like the person who shows up completely unprepared and wings it, they piss a perfectionist off. Like they like,
yeah. Especially if they actually perform well. It's like that. And it becomes this struggle of fairness. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Like I did these things, but you well know this too, that hardcore, well, there's all sorts of subtypes of perfectionism, but a certain type of perfectionist, they're actually heavy duty procrastinators because it is avoidance behavior.
Yeah.
So they wait to the last minute to try and cram everything in. But when they cram, I mean, they're like trying to digest everything. They pull all-nighters, but that comes at, yeah, exactly. I mean, well, we kind of got a mixed bag because some of our need to pull all-nighters is about getting the dopamine to fuel the stream. We got to make it exciting and dicing it. So, but wow, that's crazy to think about though. I wouldn't have thought about the whole person that just shows up and just sort of throws it all out there, coming in at the same place as the person that obviously was avoiding even answering questions because they might get it wrong.
Yeah. And you know what was really funny is that watching them, like even those ones that like guessed and everything, you could tell they were having fun with it. Because we had like little messages, like they were filling in the most ridiculous answers, like corn, blue, Sarah, like throwing out names. At one point, someone wrote like, "How's your day? I hope you're having a great day." Like,
maybe she'll give me the point because I'm friendly.
but clearly just that tickled them. Otherwise, they would not be writing that.
Were any of the questions, this just popped in, so were any of the questions that were not like multiple choice, were not hardwired, that had some sort of like narrative response, could they get partial credit for anything? Like if they got part of it?
There was a few things they could get partial credit for, but a lot of it was just identification. So like if you didn't know these fancy names, like that kind of thing. Okay, so that being one thing is like, I kind of want to pull it back to the audience, is like you've got you, the person who is judging yourself, you're judging everyone else. And you look at someone who's like showed up unprepared and guessing and like just going through it and being like, whether it's a defense mechanism or not, to be silly, because it is. But they're having way more fun than the person who's like panicked.
Right.
And seeing that their scores are similar. So I think the message I really wanted to land, and I have a couple more points I want to make, but one of the messages I really want to land is like what you are doing to yourself by turning yourself inside out, and the judgment that you are trying to avoid is costing you so much. It's costing you fun. It's costing you joy. It's costing you doing better, because here's the next group of people. There was the kids who were prepared, answered everything that they could. And I mean, even if they guessed, there was people who like, they got several right that they already knew. And then there was people who was like, I'm just going to answer B and true. That is going to be my strategy. I'm not going to overthink it. It's just B and true. And they were guaranteed to get some of them right just by guessing.
Yeah.
And they did better than those other kids who were so worried about getting it wrong. So there's this piece of like, I think I kind of think of it as like the person who they do some prep, they know their stuff, maybe they could do better, maybe they haven't done enough, but they've got at least a strategy to reduce the mental load to figure it out, to like have some kind of like, it's okay, I'm going to ask, or I'm going to figure it out, or this is just how I'm going to handle this, and I'm not going to worry about it not being perfect. And then they do better. And then the kids who won, the kids who like crushed it, I mean, they showed up prepared. They came in the room. They're like, I could see them. They're not supposed to start until they start, but I can see them like eyeing the rocks and they're like hungry and ready to jump on it. And they know they've got it together. And those kids answered the most questions correctly because they were prepared. They were committed. They knew they wanted to win. These are some of the top performing schools who typically go to nationals, who have had programs for 25 years. Like they've got a lot of their strategy, but the point is they've got like a high level of commitment. But those kids answered every single question. So maybe they didn't guess. Maybe some of them they probably did have to guess at. Out of 300 questions, I think the highest scores were just over 200. So they're getting a lot wrong. There's a lot they don't know.
Yeah.
But they are attempting, they are getting partial credit, they are doing everything that they can to not leave any blanks. And I just saw it as such a testament to the different types of people we see struggling through business. All of the kids struggled.
Sure. It's a competition and it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be challenging and difficult. They're supposed to struggle.
Yes. And in fact, they changed up the questions because, like Ohio changed up our questions because at the national level, they were getting beat out by other states that we weren't asking hard enough questions. So they really up-leveled the questions because they want the kids to be able to prepare and compete at the national level against other states that have been winning more regularly because their questions are more competitive. So it's fascinating to me. And that's the same level of commitment that we have in business. There's like, I want to do a business. I want to do well. I'm going to completely overthink it, or I'm going to be committed and prepared, and I'm going to do my best and figure it out as I go. And I'm not going to worry about being judged.
Yeah. Well, this ties back to a previous episode we did about struggle.
Yeah.
About the avoidance of struggle or how struggle is a bad thing. Struggle needs to be part of the equation because especially as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you learn by doing. And there are some lessons that you are only going to learn in the trenches. You're only going to learn mid-process. It's not something you can be equipped for, prepared for ahead of time because it's a complete unknown. And even those knowns that feel or seem hardwired on the front end often change through the process. So a kid early on that doesn't have some assistance, because we're not wired this way necessarily from a nature place, but a biological place. But if they don't have some assistance, understanding that struggle is not only okay, welcome it, embrace it, learn from it, ask that question, where's the lesson in this? They're going to be those adults that avoid struggle or live in a state of denial that it's all good when it's not.
I was just hearing I follow some parenting people. I don't know what you'd call them, parenting coaches. Like, I lost the name for my own self. Okay, there we go. A coach, but for parents.
Are you struggling right now?
I think so. But look, hey, I got my shirt on. It says, choose kindness always. We all struggle. Choose kindness always.
I had the blue shirt on, my version of that shirt earlier, or that's what the first shirt I had on. And anyway, I changed.
And now it says love. Now it says love. That's so fun. Anyways.
Oh, that's funny. I just now noticed.
So, listeners, you really are getting like the raw, uncut Jonathan and Alecia right now.
These are our spontaneous conversations. Oops.
All right. So, what were we saying? Oh, parenting coach. Parenting coach. Yeah. And so we did that. It was episode 100 that we actually did on struggle. And one of the things that this parenting coach was talking about is that she has a maybe unpopular opinion with some of the parenting strategies that are being used, especially with a lot of the more spicy personalities coming out. And a lot of it comes from like a coping mechanism, but it's anticipating all the things in the day that are going to set a kid off.
Yeah.
And then rearranging the day, the schedule, the whatever.
Planning for the triggers, planning for all the
Yes.
triggers. Yeah.
And I get it because I have a neurospicy kid too. So like, I get it, like the walking on eggshells. And also, I thought she made a really great point though, that there actually has to be some frustration tolerance that is built. And, you know, I'm not here today to do a podcast specifically around parenting or this is about kids, but it's really about maybe seeing yourself in what even these kids went through and taking this test. I'm sure every single person, as we described that situation, could think back to when they were in middle school and high school and think, oh, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
And then how is that showing up in your business now?
Yeah. Because even if I'm looking at this from a clinical side, if I'm working with a client clinically and there's some anxiety or depression, which are often outcomes of, or go hand in hand with hyper perfectionism, I'm going to work with that person to track back because we're going to have some unraveling to do that started very early from a cognitive and behavioral place very early. Like these age kids you're talking about and even earlier, where there either was avoidance behavior that was encouraged or was part of a trauma set that this kid had, or there's, like you're talking about, this parenting style that never allowed opportunity for this kid to build skills around frustration, around struggle, around failure. So, yeah, it's interesting to me that there seems to be a methodology, and I'm using air quotes, in schools and in households with kiddos that is all about making life easier. And as I've brought this up, and it's not a popular question to frame quite often, or I'm not seen as popular when I bring it up, but I'll ask, well, who are you making it easier for? Is it for the kid, or is it for the client, or is it for yourself? Are you trying to avoid some level of responsibility or some extra work, or whether I'm talking to middle level managers or teachers or parents, or you can frame the same question. And it's like, why does this need to be easy? Of course, we want to protect our kids. We want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure that they're healthy, but they're not always going to be happy. They're not always going to have it easy. And if you build that mindset in a kid early on, you end up with an adult with a huge sense of entitlement, very poor coping skills, no emotional intelligence. You end up with that kind of person. And I don't know where I was going with that, but there's so much in there that the example, the story you're telling of this experience with these kiddos, there's so much in there that's so relevant that could have so many good things about it, like so many life preparation, business preparation skills, and highlighting natural abilities that a particular kiddo has, helping them find like a path. But there's also ways that same kind of environment, like any kind of competitive environment, if performance isn't framed the right way by the people that a kiddo respects, it can go very dark very quickly.
Yeah.
To a hypercritical world where they self-judge everything they do. So Could you see when you were there, this is just a curiosity piece for me, could you see, like, behaviorally and just energetically, could you see the kind of the personality features of the kiddos? Like you were talking about sort of the happy-go-lucky and the ones that were obviously more frustrated or anxious. Could you see it in how they interacted with other people and how they interacted with, I mean, was it coming out behaviorally?
It wasn't, I didn't notice it. I'm a little bit like the kids that I knew, because they all have their t-shirts on, and like I knew which teams were like known for doing well in the competition. And like they came in and they're hyper focused, like peeking at the rocks, like not reading the questions, not cheating, but like right up to the line, which also another entrepreneurial thing, right? Is like I might follow the rules, but I'm gonna like come right up to the line and I might even tip over it just to get the competitive advantage. But I'm gonna be really careful not to get caught.
Yeah.
So I did witness that for sure. That was like, and then there was like a couple kids, the proctor was like, you're not to be reading the questions now. Or there was kids that at the very beginning, they check your materials and they had like some illegal materials stuffed inside their folder and they had to like ditch them because they didn't read the rules. So they had to ditch them. And some of that could just be oversight. And some of that is, I wonder if I'm going to get caught, you know? And then some of them, like, they just knew, like, this is not my event. This is not the event I'm here for. Because the kids are competing in 3 or 4 different events. And to prep for it, you're looking at a school year's worth of 3 or 4 different college level classes.
Wow.
I mean,
it's crazy.
We're like sitting there trying to figure out physics and trying to reteach ourselves anatomy and physiology and like machines and pulleys. And I mean,
it's like, and I have no idea how to pronounce this word.
Yeah. The kids are building hovercrafts. They've got like build events where they've actually built a physical thing that is mechanical and has to work in a certain way under certain parameters. Wow. So to some extent, the kids also have to make a choice as to what they're going to focus on. Same in your business, right? That you might have all these things that really need to be done, but you've got to make a choice on like, what is the thing you're going to do really well? And so the kids that showed up had nothing, weren't prepared. There may have been a situation where someone ended up sick and couldn't do the event. And so the team, you have to compete or you get disqualified. So the team may have sent someone else to just cover and been like, just do your best. Have a good time. Like, we know you're not prepared. That wasn't going to be their event that they won. And so I think that there could have been a number of scenarios that I could make up and I could see a little bits of their personality, but I don't think it was as outward as, and maybe just because I was distracted. There's 30 kids in a room.
You had a task too.
Yeah.
You had a specific. So I wasn't relating this at first when you first started telling the story, but last year I had the opportunity to go to my oldest godson's world robotics competition. His team, high school team, made it to Worlds. And so it was these teams in this highly technical event for robotics from all over the world. And it was so interesting to see the cultural differences that came up and also like the resource differences, because there were kids there from some of the stand countries, the ones that often come, not only would it be a very difficult just for them to get there, but ones that had girls on their team, that women are fourth class citizens, that kind of thing. So it was just so amazing. I'm going to get emotional thinking about it, but it was just so amazing to watch these kids in their own elements, but based on their context, not the context of you got to perform at this level or you can't even be here. You can't even be in the game. And the different ways that coaches and parents that traveled with these groups would encourage the kids or would interact with the kids. And you could see it in cultural differences. And I hate to say this, but it's very true. Some of the worst, what I would call some of the most trauma being inflicted on some of these kiddos were some of the American teams, by and large. And often it was from a place of this very rigorous set of performance criteria that were not relevant to either the individual kid or what was happening in the competition. But it was a set of rules that you had to follow because they were the rules. It was really interesting to watch. But what became really cool, and I think this is something that maybe a lesson that maybe this is a whole nother podcast, when these kids started actually interacting and partnering up, because they had the opportunity to actually bring in a partnership and create, they call them alliances, when they would become from a completely different culture, completely different skill set, even performance level, and they would make it work. It was like this mind-opening experience for everybody involved, not just the kids. Like, you would hear the commentator, like, oh my gosh, this was completely unexpected that these kids that don't even speak the same language have figured out a way to make these two robots do these things that they're supposed to accomplish. It was like this sense of amazement and joy that came out of this collaboration, where perfectionism was out of the equation. It was merely about performance based on how do we best collaborate. It wasn't even how do we make this perfect? How do we win? It's like, how do we make this collaboration the best we can out of the resources we have?
It's a little like the context changed because the context changed. It reminds me of a book. There's a book called Tribal Leadership. It's been years since I have read it. Did you ever read that, Tribal Leadership?
That sounds really familiar, but
by Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher Wright.
Yes.
Leveraging Natural Groups to Build Thriving Organizations. Great book. I highly recommend. But it talks about, like, there's the dog eat dog mentality of, like, it's me against, like, everyone else is great, I'm not. There's, the individual, like, I'm great, you're great, but we're two separate things. There's organizations, we're great, they're not. So outside of our organizations, and then the fourth level is like, we're all great. And it sounds to me kind of like they got to a higher level of leadership, essentially, in those groups where they came together to compete against other teams. But then it talks about, like, the highest levels, like seeing yourself kind of as a global citizen and being like, we're all great, let's collaborate. And like how a lot of, like, nothing really stays in that state.
Yeah.
Tribal leadership, man, that is something everyone should be reading right now, given the current economy and what's going on. Homework assignment.
Yeah, I would say it's super, super relevant for what's going on in our world right now.
And so it's this concept that, like, when we flip into this, we're all great, the flow and the magic that happens from that. And even when we get into, like, we're great and they're not, within an organization, you can get into some really great flow state and that kind of thing. So didn't expect the conversation to go quite in that direction, but trusting that the message is exactly what needed to happen is, and I think what I really hope someone takes away from this is, it takes being committed to what you're up to and having a real reason and a why for doing it and knowing really what your end game is. It takes preparation, like showing up prepared, being focused, taking what you envision, your vision, seriously, and showing up as the person capable of achieving, and then being willing to guess, being willing to figure it out as you go, being willing to just take a stab at, take risks.
Take risks.
Yeah, take a risk.
Embrace the struggle.
Embrace the struggle, take the risk, and let go of that judgment. And that's really the recipe for winning. And that's what I took away from this weekend. That was probably, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to grade, because not only did it make me really reflect on a different version of the way our clients get to where they are and what they do struggle with, like where that came from and seeing that happen. But I think it also made me a better parent and a better coach, because I can go to these kids now, because Neil is super excited. She can't wait to do it again next year. She loved it. She loved being part of a group. And so giving her that feedback of, hey, here's what I noticed about teams who did better, because it's just epigenetic. She's got that same version of perfectionism that sort of like gets overwhelmed, hesitates, procrastinates, and then like pulls something out the last week and does well, like makes varsity as a sixth grader. But it's always bothered me my whole life. I don't like operating under those circumstances. And so just gave me such insight into being a better coach by having that opportunity to volunteer. And so I'm really glad that I did it. And I wanted to share that lesson with our listeners. So thanks for unpacking it with me.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And to have such a timely and relevant example of that's helpful across the board at all ages. And my only nugget I would throw in there is it's never too late to unlearn and then to develop some new approaches.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the paths I wanted to go down when you said from a therapeutic standpoint, right? So from therapy standpoint, like those traumatic things, those past things that you need to unpack and unravel and understand. You work with a therapist on in the coaching space. What I'm focused on with immunity to change, and I'm not sure what methodologies you use, I am sure, like mindfulness and things like that. Duh. But anything else you got in your little tool bag? It's really focusing on retraining the brain that, like, if I make a mistake, like, the worst is not going to happen. And just taking small risks. And this is a lot of what I work with my clients on is we develop ahead of time, like small risks that you're willing to take without being really attached to the outcome and just seeing what happens and what that teaches the brain is true or not true about having to be perfect and having to get it right.
I've been using the phrase, let's replace criticism with curiosity a lot lately. So going to that place of taking out the judgment and say, okay, where is this coming from? What is this really like? How can this be helpful? Asking questions that are forward moving instead of criticizing, which just drags you down, pulls you back, stops the momentum.
Yep. So I hope this was helpful for you today. If you see yourself in these kids and you realize that maybe the way that you've been operating is causing yourself more stress than it needs to, it is keeping you from taking risks that you know would be beneficial. I think some great opportunities are going to come out of this time that we're in our life. I don't know if I said this to you last time or last time we were together, but I do think we're coming up on a time that some of us who are in middle age, that freaking sucks to say, by the way. I just had my 46th birthday. I get to officially say I'm middle age.
Preaching to the choir. Add 10 plus to that and then we'll talk.
But we are in a time when this may be our next opportunity to do something really meaningful and take advantage. I don't want to say take advantage because I hate that, like advantage, but like
make the most of
the opportunity that is in front of us and coming for us before we hit retirement age is what I want to say.
Yeah.
So if you see yourself hesitating, reach out and we can hop on a call. I can do a capacity assessment with you, look at the places in your life that you may be holding yourself back. If I'm a great fit for you, if Jonathan's a great fit for you, I will help you get to the right person that can help unlock some of these next level things for you. So with all of that being said, sending you so much love.
Be well, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.